think, why you have so many new developers in it, because it is a relatively easy project to develop, to operate, to lease, to manage. I personally think it's, because I've owned, single family homes. I've never owned multifamily, but I think it's substantially easier than running rental houses.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Cody Payne. Cody's the Senior Vice President at Colliers, Texas, and specializes in selling flex industrial investment properties across Texas. Over the last 19 years, Cody and his team have closed more than 850 real estate transactions. So, Cody, I'll stop there because I want to let you tell your story. But first, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out today, taking the time to come on the show. And as I mentioned before we started recording, I'm looking forward to learning a lot here. So I'm excited to talk. So thank you.
Nice. Yeah, you and me both. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Why don't you start with your background, kind of tell us about your journey, and then we'll just dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I started in 2005 in the small bay flex industrial side, and which is kind of like a hybrid between smaller industrial and office mix, and it's it's revolutionized quite a bit over the years, and like we were talking earlier, since 2018, it's really been on a historic rise, and since COVID, it's gained even more traction, and it seems like it's where other asset classes maybe have struggled or not done as well. This one has continued to do well, and it does very good taking from other asset classes, and taking from the office sector, taking from the retail sector, taking from the light industrial sector. And so it's a very good, very versatile project that has evolved quite a bit. But I got a team of guys here, phenomenal team. We've been together a long time, and we specialize in helping new developers build this stuff. We specialize in our main forte obviously is selling it as an investment portfolio sale. We continue to bring new eyes to the asset classes, whether it's real estate funds, institutions, out of country capital. We just continue to bring as many eyes to it as possible, and so that's one of our goals that we've had for a long time, is to just continue to bring this to light. And so we enjoy it a lot. It's a lot of fun, and especially in today's market where other asset classes maybe aren't doing as well. Ours is thriving very, very well. Yeah, and you sort of mentioned again before we started, but I guess two things I want to ask. One, I don't know if you can define for the listener kind of what exactly you consider, sort of that flex industrial space. I feel like, as you said, it kind of takes from different areas. So maybe that's a hard question to answer to specifically nail it down, but give it a try. I mean, I'll do my best. What I consider small bay is, these buildings that you see that have a roll-up door on them, and sometimes a walk-in door. Sometimes they can have a glorified glass entryway. I mean, you can design them in many different ways, but a lot of times they'll tailor to tenants, as low as really 800 square feet up to 6,000, 10,000 square feet. Not really going too much larger than that, because then you start getting into the mid-size stuff, and then obviously you got your big box stuff once you start exceeding 50, 75,000 square feet. But these are your small bay tenants that, the finish out is very minimal. A lot of times it'll be one office and a restroom. Sometimes it's nothing. And they're just spaces that are very flexible for tenants. They don't generally have a lot of TIs and finish out done to them. They're in buildings that you can, if you've got 1,000 square foot spaces or 2,000 square foot spaces, it allows you to knock down the wall. Now you got 4,000 square feet. And so, that's where the flexible model comes from. And that's why, you'll sometimes see these buildings with garage doors on it. And sometimes they'll have a general contracting company in there, like a plumber or whatnot. And then, sometimes I'll have a, Mr. Jim's or Domino's Pizza in there. And so they have the ability, and many times, and in many cases, to take from, like I said, other asset classes. We're actually selling one right now in North Fort Worth, and it's got some retail tenants in there that came from a retail center. It's got an office tenant that came from an office building. And the reason those guys actually came to that facility is because the rents are much lower than where they're at. And, the building offers a lot of flexibility to them. And so it's spaces that you see, a lot of times on the side of the road, they usually have decent visibility to it. They don't have to have, crazy good retail visibility in a lot of cases, but their build side is generally on the cheaper side when you compare it to retail,
Sure.
which can also be kind of similar. But the big thing right now is the metal construction side of it, which you see all over the U.S. is people building these small bay properties out of metal. Because of obviously the pricing and of construction and whatnot as compared to doing them in tilt wall. But that's how I would describe the small bay side.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And I get a picture in my mind about, when you talk about that, what you're talking about. So I think that was actually a pretty helpful description. You mentioned, it's been on the rise, I think you said since 2018, and, continues to do well when some other asset classes aren't doing as well. Why do you think that is? And what have you seen in the market that has caused that shift? What are your thoughts on why you would be seeing that?
Well, I think there's a few reasons. One is the evolution of the asset. When I first started in 2005, it was just very down and dirty, contractor garages that it just tailored to that one kind of tenant. And,
Yep.
With e-commerce changing so much, 2016, 2017, 2018, just new startup businesses, they just became very good properties to bring people in, come in, expand, downsize, grow, satellite it. And then, the build quality of them really started to improve as well to where they could capture other asset class tenants. And then I think what really exploded it in 2020, especially on the buyer side, is inflation, because one of the inflation's been one of the biggest hurdles and the biggest thorn in the side of like the office building sector, even multifamily and retail, right? Like when you lose a tenant, your re-tenanting, your finish out, your commissions, all that stuff. It's very, very expensive, especially in office space. In these, it's very, very low, and in many cases, next to nothing on TIs. And so that's why it's been such a big demand for investors, developers, institutions, funds. A lot of people love looking into this stuff. And I think it's on a similar trajectory as self-storage was in the late 90s, early 2000s. Remember, that was kind of all private mom and pop ownerships, and now it's one of the heavier institutionalized asset classes. But it's really the inflation factor that brought so many investors to it that continue to do so. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people, when you're looking at an investment opportunity, they got the below the line item, which is still a cost at the end of the day. And these, you see it substantially less than a lot of others.
Yeah, and you sort of mentioned what I was actually going to ask you next. I think with self-storage and things like mobile home parks, like there's been a big shift into those asset classes from them being sort of mainly mom and pop. And some of the guests I've talked to that invest in specialize in those particular asset classes have said that is the advantage, that you're able to take this mom and pop asset and kind of modernize it and put in the right systems of technology and things like that. Do you feel the same way about sort of the flex industrial space? Is it been traditionally mom and pop? I know you mentioned the contractor garage door, because again, that, like I said, that you sort of painted a good picture. This just maybe my own experience. I don't feel like I saw a lot of these types of assets like 20 years ago. But
no, and the ones you would have seen, 20 years ago, like I said, when I got started in the business, the average tenant size was, I think, closer to 8,000 square feet, which today the ideal tenant size is closer to 1,800 square feet. Okay. And it's because there's so many small businesses that can operate in less square footage. ceiling heights obviously gone up substantially from back then. There's parks right now that are, running 22 to 27. This where back in the day, you saw a lot of them that were at 12. We sold a park out in the Great Southwest District of DFW, and it was built in the 80s, and the ceiling height there's like 12 feet. And so you're right, you didn't see as many of them back then. They looked like little office industrial business parks back then in the 80s and 90s, but they've really transformed a lot, and it's because a lot of people are tailoring to several different asset classes via retail and office and light industrial and showroom, and that's what kind of makes the versatility of it. But yeah, that's been the biggest thing. Whenever we have gone out to larger groups and said, hey, we know y'all invest in multifamily, or we know y'all invest in office, why don't you take a look at this, and here's the reasons why. And you've got such a high tenant retention. Your tenant pool in most areas across the U.S. is very, very strong, and your annual rental increases have been very, very good over the past 5-6 years. And so it's got a lot of good positive factors. The only thing that a lot of them, I think, struggled to look past is similar to self-storage, was kind of the metal concept of a lot of these, right? The cheaper build quality. And so, but a lot of those guys are looking past that. And there's groups that we've sold stuff to that's metal construction in tertiary markets that if we'd have taken this to them 2-3 years ago, they would have said no way. But because of how times have changed, they're definitely taking a look at it. And you look at the popularity of it across the U.S., and the construction numbers just continue to rise. And it's got a very good low vacancy rate, even with the amount of new construction that's going on across the board.
Yeah, and you touched on that. Was kind of, I was going to sort of go down that road next. Like you said that you have good tenant retention. I was going to ask you, kind of how difficult or easy it is to find tenants. You're not, but it sounds like you're having low vacancy rates. What do you, I guess, if someone, you said you're talking to some of these bigger groups about coming from other asset classes in there, I would also imagine maybe the price point is a little bit different as well in terms of, I guess it depends on size,
yeah,
but
it can be. These that's the unique thing about these two, is they range quite a bit. They can be as low as $60-$70 a foot, all the way up to $300 a foot. It's really going to depend on class and area, return, and things of that nature. Each area is going to be a little specific, right? Each one kind of commands a different tenant size. But the releasability of it, is really understanding the average tenant size of that area, because not every area is the same. And so, there's parts of, Texas that, really command 1,500 square feet. There's parts of, Oklahoma that really likes 2,000. There's parts of Colorado that really likes 2,500. And so it's really area specific in how those types of tenants, service and tailor to those areas. Because you got to keep in mind, a lot of these, it's not rare, but you just don't see as many national credit tenants in a lot of these, right? You see a lot of franchises, regional, local. And so you got to understand your tenant base and what they need to service the areas, because there's actually a lot of amenities that you can add onto these parks, which a lot of people aren't aware of. And so they're very, very diverse. And that's what we like a lot about it, is they just continue to add new amenities as our economy and generation and technology changes. There's a lot of unique things that you can do to these projects.
Such as, what? That's actually very interesting, because I guess I wouldn't have thought. We're talking about, again, in my head, I'm picturing essentially the metal box with a garage door. So, what types of amenities are people looking for, and I guess as an owner, what would you be providing?
So there's huge ones. Side storage yards or rear storage yards to also lease with them is a huge amenity in several areas. Mezzanine space can be a huge amenity. Ceiling height, additional parking, freestanding loading dock. There's a lot of little things that you can do to amenitize these, much better. There's dress up appearances that you can do to them. because, as you know, a lot of the ones you see are just going to be basic metal with a
Yeah.
garage door and a walk-in door, right?
Right.
We call that the efficient build, the efficient model,
Right.
which is just a good way of saying like the cheapest model you can build.
Right.
And that's a highly desirable model for tenants, but out of all the flex space, it's the least desirable for buyers. Now there's still a huge pull for it. It's just it's kind of similar to multifamily or office, right? Like when you get down in the class C, you got your buyer pool. You go to B, it gets a little larger, and then A starts to shrink again because it starts tailoring to a more high net worth type of buyer. And so your B side that has the right amenities for the area, which can be a showroom style flex deal. Those are the ones we like the most. But interestingly enough, when I started in the business a long time ago, when we were leasing it, I mean, there was no amenities to it. It was open the garage door, dust out the cobwebs, lease it, go home.
Yeah.
That was it.
I've worked in construction a lot. I've been in a lot of those buildings where it's just like, it's like I think of like a countertop fabricator or tile or something like that, like those sorts of
cabinet maker, landscape company, plumber. I mean, those are going to be your basic kind of light industrial guys that are just kind of using it for storage and operating their small businesses out of. And that's kind of where it starts, and then you can progress it and advance it from there if you want to build something a little different or buy something a little different. The showroom style and the premium style, those have a little bit better rent growth in them than the efficient build. But the efficient build is the easiest way to get in, whether you're buying or developing. And that's, I think, why you have so many new developers in it, because it is a relatively easy project to develop, to operate, to lease, to manage. I personally think it's, because I've owned, single family homes. I've never owned multifamily, but I think it's substantially easier than running rental houses. I've owned office, I've owned other stuff. It's by far the easiest, and I think that's why it's the most kind of landlord friendly asset.
I mean, you still have tenants, but not, you're not gonna have nearly as many as you would in a apartment building or something like that.
You don't have as many maintenance requests either, like you do in apartments. You don't have the high turnover like you do in storage, right? Storage has high occupancy, but it also has high turnover. And that was the only issue. I actually built a storage facility a long time ago, and I had to get rid of that thing. I mean, that was just high turnover, but it was easily releasable and it did very, very well. But it's something that takes a lot more management intensiveness to it. But it's also a job, in my opinion.
Right. So, you said there's a lot of development with this. What do you prefer? I mean, if someone wants to get into this space, would you suggest they go out and buy existing, or that they, find a way to, do some level of development? I'm sure it's going to depend on area, but with it being...
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with it being, as construction projects go, maybe on the easier side, do you think that's a good space, good place to start your development journey or something? Like, I'm just interested in your take on what you think is the right way to go.
So there's a lot of new developers that have never done development that are building this stuff all across the U.S. I think that if you're going to do it, understand your parameters, especially if you never developed before. Like if you're a new developer completely, you definitely want to stick to, maybe building in the county where there's no restrictions. So you're not having to deal with as many city code issues. Because as you know, anytime you're building something, you're doing it in the city. That's your biggest hurdle, is dealing with, the city and all their restrictions and what they need and permitting and things of that nature. But when you're in the county, I mean, things aren't permitted. You don't have as many, fire code issues. And so that's what we always tell people. If someone says, hey, we want to build this project, how do we start? And we say, if you've never built before, go build in the county. That's going to be your easiest. And you can find good quality land in the county. And so, but, obviously the easiest way to get into it is to just go ahead and buy existing. With the market the way it is right now, I mean, you'll be spending maybe a little bit more than what it costs to build, but you'll also have that headache eliminated. So it's going to be really developer buyer, centric. But I think there's a lot of good opportunity out there on the buy side. I really do.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I like development, so it's compelling to start there. But I can imagine, especially if you're just getting into the space, eliminating one of there's essentially development itself is its own hurdle, and now you can eliminate that piece and buy something existing, and you've got existing tenants that's going to be probably maybe a little bit easier. What sort of cap rates are you seeing these days? It's kind of been all over the place depending on what kind of debt you can get on the multifamily side. But what are you thinking? What do you expect in the flex space?
Well, cap rate is going to depend on a lot of factors. But if we want to take a basic stabilized park, as it sits today, where your interest rate is going to be over 7%, you're probably going to be between 7 and 7.5 on a fully stabilized with not a lot of rent growth in there. I mean, we've done them as low as 4, but obviously those 4s have some value add aspect to it.
Yeah.
But ideally they'll range anywhere from 6.5 to 7.5. I think across the board, and then obviously as you go into some other states like California, Jersey, and some of those, I mean, you'll see those get compressed quite a bit because it's a little bit different attributes and buyer pool out there. But as far as you take your main states that a lot of people are looking at for this stuff, which is going to be Florida, Georgia, Texas, those are running around 6.5 to 7.5.
Yeah, I live in California. Everybody loves to bash on California and say don't invest there, but I actually think this could be actually a really compelling asset class for California. I mean, the cap rates on everything in California are lower, but you're not going to have the same, tenant landlord type of issues that you would have in a residential situation if you were looking at something like this in California. I would think. I guess I don't know that for sure, but might not be quite the same challenges.
Typically much easier lockout than a residential process.
Yeah.
Because it's a
interesting.
Very interesting. California, I'll tell you, has one of the highest amounts of square footage of flex out of any state in the U.S. And obviously has some of the higher rental rates out there. But the demand is very strong in California. We actually pulled stats. I should have had them here, but we actually pulled stats on the top 5 key states, which California, is obviously in there due to its size. And I mean, it has a strong need for it, without a doubt, because these offer a lot of versatility. And California is obviously a very, the businesses are very versatile out there. So if you've got a nice building with glass showroom frontage, maybe a glass roll-up door. I mean, you can get anywhere from your general contractors to a nice coffee shop to, a sandwich shop, things of that nature, and they tailor very well out there. So we've got a good office out there that does quite a bit of those. We see a lot of unique designs out there that look really, really good and perform very, very well.
Yeah, might need that connection. I see them everywhere. They're kind of all over the place, and you mentioned the diversity of it. Not long ago, went into one that was essentially a kitchen, like a group chef kitchen. Like it was like a whole bunch of different delivery based restaurants in one of these like flex industrial spaces, and you could walk in and get food and stuff, but effectively their whole model was, we're going to share this space to cook, and then we're going to get it all delivered by DoorDash or whatever. It was kind of a fascinating option, I think.
Oh, they're great space. Really, I'll tell you, out here we see commercial kitchens in them all the time.
Yep.
All the time. They're great spaces for them, because think about it. Where can a commercial kitchen really go, right? They don't use 10,000 square feet. It's hard for, they don't want to pay to go into retail centers. They can't go into office buildings. Yeah. And so, and that's another tenant that expanded drastically when COVID came in, right? Was, commercial kitchens and making branches of some of the franchises, and so we've seen plenty of catering companies. Chick-fil-A, we sold a project. Chick-fil-A had one of their catering spots in there, and that's all it was used for. And so, that interesting you say that. That's a tenant that expanded quite a bit, and you see it. I know it's big in California. It's also big in Texas.
Yeah, I had never wouldn't have even occurred to me. I happened to walk by, and it was literally I don't even know, 15 restaurants, if you will, on the sign, and you could, like I said, you could go in and get something, but really it was set up for a delivery service, to be or a catering service, like you said, like some level of large scale commercial kitchen use. So I mean, it is really a fascinating. I guess it could be. I guess if you've got existing tenants in there and it's kind of stabilized, not hard to underwrite, but maybe if you're looking at a value add type of scenario with something like this, it might be a little bit tricky, just because you can be so creative and maybe figuring out what the right tenants are, and if you've got to fill space. How do you think someone who, I mean, and I'm at the moment I'm not someone, how would you suggest someone would want to kind of start exploring this as an investment option?
So if you say, hey, I'm interested in the flex side, I want to take a look into it, maybe you need to reach out to, somebody that specializes in it, right? Like our team, that's what we do. The unique thing about it is there's not a lot of people that are true specialists in it.
Yeah.
Like in Texas, Texas is a massive state. I mean, there's really only like 3 of us. California, I only know a couple of them. Other states, I don't know of any of them. And so that's why we operate all over the U.S. But, familiarize yourself with it, understand what drives the rents, what drives the tenants coming to there. Because, it is one thing that I always tell people is it is something that's on the rise. And with anything on the rise, you want to understand what your potential exposure is if it gets too overbuilt. Right. Just like retail can get overbuilt, just like office has gotten overbuilt in many areas. And so that's why, like I say, amenitizing, understanding, how the park's set up, how you tailor to tenants. Because, the biggest thing with take storage, for example, I know we've talked about self-storage. We've got guys here that sell self-storage. And when you ask them, if you say, hey, where's the best place to put a self-storage facility? They'll tell you, every self-storage developer will tell you right next to another self-storage facility. And so these are very, very similar. We see people build them and we see another competitor get put in right next door. And so, understanding that and how to insulate yourself from the competition, I think is key. But man, it's very easy to familiarize yourself with us. We actually, we finalized a book. I'm going to send you a copy of it. We call it the Flex Space Domination book. And it really just gives you everything you need to know about the flex space, how to get in it, how to develop it, what you'll run into, how to lease it and all that stuff. And I'll send you a copy of it so you can have it.
Oh, great. Yeah, it is fascinating, I think. And I'm glad you pointed that out, right? Like the tendency is to, the tendency is a lot of times to get onto the hot asset class maybe a little too late. Right. So you're it's good if you're leading those trends. It's not as good if you're kind of on the back end of those trends. And you've been doing this since 2005. So, you've seen it throughout. So yeah, definitely important to understand. And really, and this could go for anything, but just understanding the supply demand dynamics of essentially whatever asset and whatever region you're really focused on. That's probably pretty universal across all real estate, but I think you've alluded to being really in touch with what the need is for that specific area that you're looking to either develop or purchase flex space.
Yeah, it's like any, especially like multifamily, it's your first thing that you're going to look at is what is the demand here, and how do I capitalize on that, and how do I remain stronger than the competition? And it's no different. But the good thing about the flex space is it's very easy to figure out, in my opinion.
Cool. No, I mean, great to know. Well, Cody, let me switch gears so I can ask you the questions I like to ask every guest. The first one, of course, being related to the name of the show, Know Your Why. what is your why? You've I feel like you've kind of led the charge in this space. What keeps you motivated and moving forward?
I'll tell you, I enjoy working with people. I really like seeing these buildings get built. We invest in it as a team as well. There's a lot of people that that'll come to us, want to build something, but need some investors, and we'll help out on that. We just really love this type of asset class. We love investing in it. It's been great for me, the team here, our families, and it's just something that we really enjoy. It's got a really fun and interesting buyer and seller pool, and we really enjoy working with those guys and bringing it to light and helping these guys out. And so, that's our why. And I'm a big car guy. I got a bunch of classic cars, and it helps fuel that. Hobby of mine as well. So that helps out a lot.
What kind? What's your favorite?
So actually, do you know where Rio Linda is in California?
Yeah.
So I just had a Chevelle, a 1970 Chevelle I just bought and had shipped out here that a guy was building out there, and he put a LS2 engine in it, which is what they put in the new Camaro SSs. So he bought that from the factory, put it in here, and was having trouble adapting it to the car. And so I think he ran out of money, so I bought it, shipped it out here, and that's very quickly become one of my favorites. It's just a monster of a car.
Yeah. People like to put their cars on social media and these fancy new cars. For me, the right car is I want a 69 Camaro. Someday, that is my, if I generally do not care about cars. I've driven a F-150 for, 15 years, not the same one, but maybe even 20 years at this point. But if I ever were to get, a special car, that's what I want, like a restored.
I like those. A friend of mine's got I think it's a 68, which is the same body style.
Yeah.
He's got the 327. I mean, they're good cars. But yeah, my grandfather and my father were big into classic muscle cars. And so that's why I stayed in it too, right? I've driven a Ferrari and whatnot, and those are cool and all, but I really like American muscle. Raw American muscle and the smell of fuel.
Yeah. It's probably not very environmentally friendly, but it is.
No,
they are just
Californians don't like me, I'm sure,
beautiful cars.
I'm just killing trees out there.
Right. We may have just foreshadowed or even given away the next question. But typically, I ask some people to tell me something about themselves that isn't common knowledge. So maybe it's the car thing, or if you want to add something else to let listeners know you, please feel free. But
no, I'm a big car guy. Actually just got married earlier this year as well.
Congratulations.
Hey, thank you. And I actually do acting on the side every now and then. That's been a big hobby of mine. And so I've done a little bit of that. So that's probably something a lot of folks don't know. I'm not the best actor, basically, like a Steven Seagal 80s movie, just doing my best there. But yeah, big car guy. I go to a lot of car shows. Actually, an old 72 Mustang of mine. I was at a car show 2 weekends ago and got 2 trophies with that car. So I love going to car shows.
Amazing. When people hear this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Easy. flexbusinessparks.com. Me, the whole team, we're all there. You can access that. You can get the book. You can see what we work on. You can see what drives this stuff. Figure out, where you can find it, how to build it, how to buy it, whatever you want to do. We can help you out.
Awesome. Well, listen, I really appreciate having you on the show today. I appreciate you taking the time out and sharing all that you did. I am very intrigued. So I'm sure other people listening will be interested in and be reaching out. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. Folks listening, I know you're going to love this episode. Please like, rate, and review so we can get more great guests like Cody. And thank you all for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?